Hi everybody, this is Ruth Royal from Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm really delighted to be here today with Tina Simpson, who's HR Manager, and Paul Walker, who's the Training Manager at Survival Systems International. Welcome both of you, lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much. Afternoon.
So I know you've got a presentation for us, so if you want to bring that up, that would be great. We'd love to see it.
Thank you.
Content. Cool. This is where we go on here, and hopefully
that is coming up now. I can see it loading. It's just not showing just yet. There it is. It's perfect.
There we go. Awesome. Right. Okay.
So we are Survival Systems International, and we just want to briefly tell you who we are and what we do this afternoon. And you can see a picture of the capsules on the first slide there. So we manufacture those in our offices in the US. Okay, so just some brief information for you. So as I mentioned, we manufacture capsules and lifeboats from our Valley Center headquarters in America, in California. Regarding the UK, we have two offices in the UK, one here in Great Yarmouth, which is where we're talking to you from this afternoon, and then we have another base in Montrose in Scotland. We have over 50 years experience in the business and in the industry, and we currently employ around about 250 employees globally. We'll have a look at those locations in a moment as well. So we install and inspect and maintain survival equipment on both maritime vessels and offshore installations. So we have skilled technicians that we take through a very rigorous training program in order that they can go offshore and do the inspections and so on for us. We do have several service centres around the world, and we'll have a look, as I say, at those locations shortly. And they supply technicians to go offshore to do what I mentioned regarding the inspections and so on. And we also have workshops attached to some of our service centres, so we can refurbish and repair capsules if they are not able to be repaired offshore. And really importantly, I think, is that we do have the best safety evacuation record in the oil and gas industry.
There we go. Okay, and like Tina's already stated, that we're based out of the US, is where the main manufacturing hub is. But on the image you see there, you've got one of our totally enclosed motor-propelled survival craft, TEMPS for short, a rather natty acronym, I'm sure you'll agree. But you can see there on the right-hand side, there's one located on a fixed asset. Most of the ones that we're doing, which are single fall, which is the one wire drop, like you see in the image on the right there, are located on assets such as oil rigs. We also produce our own twin fall, which is what you'd expect a life raft or life survival craft to look like, which looks like a small boat, but the only reason we call it twin fall, it's got a wire on both ends. But the main focus of our sort of like industry is maritime, is for vessels such as bulk carriers, passenger ships, so on and so forth, and then the fixed assets, which is generally offshore oil production and oil support, where we've got that particular type of vessel that we produce and manufacture.
Okay, so we talked about some of the locations that we operate out of. Initially, when the company was first started, the capsules were sold from the US, and two service centres were opened to service all of the repairs and so on. One in Great Yarmouth and one in New Orleans. Both of those centres are still open, and as you can see from that list, we have added to those service centres around the world over the years, over the 50 years that we've been in business. So we tend to split the two regions. So we have an Eastern Hemisphere and a Western Hemisphere regions, and we have service centres in all of those locations there, and we cover the whole of the globe.
Yeah, and I think as Great Yarmouth, we're responsible for the eastern side.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
anything east of the UK we're responsible for, and the US look after the other bits.
Absolutely.
Okay, so briefly touching on the service sectors we cover. If we just go around the images, on the left hand side you can see what we refer to as a jack up rig there. You can just basically see on the side some of our equipment hanging there, the little orange dots. Then we can do the passenger industry as well. A lot of the vessels that operate don't use our particular type of survival craft. However, because we're what's called an approved service provider, we can offer maintenance and inspection facilities to companies such as P&O or Celebrity Cruises, or who was the other one we did? Princess Cruises, yeah, where we can go and our technicians can undertake the regular annual and 5-yearly inspections that are mandated by current regulation. And then at the bottom we've got a picture of a commercial tanker, and they've got their own specific type of vessel which is called a free fall, which basically drops off the back in an emergency. But they're the type of sectors that we actually serve. So if we move on to the roles that we can give within SSI.
Yeah, sure. So we have several different departments working within SSI. We've talked a little bit about the technicians. So we have both maritime and offshore service technicians. Takes about, from start to finish, it would take about 2.5 years to train to become completely qualified within that role. We also have workshops on a lot of our service centres, which I mentioned, and so we have workshop technicians, and they're responsible for looking after refurbishments and repairs and of capsules, but also of winches and davits that come in for repair. In order to make sure that our customers are well looked after, we have customer account management teams, service teams, and they look after specific customers. They make sure that they are in regular contact. They make sure that they are booking in their annual inspections, 5-yearly inspections, any repairs that need doing. So they are looking after their accounts and ensuring that we can support our customers in any way that they need. To some of the back office functions that we have accounts and finance. So we have finance assistants in all of the different locations that I mentioned, and we have people looking after the group's finances within there as well. Sales and marketing is very important. We have our own website, which is managed through sales and marketing, and we have our own sales representatives in each region who feed into the service centres. So once the business is won and they've made contact with a customer, they would then pass that customer through to the customer account coordinators, and they would then look after them from there. So it's a fairly seamless process. In order to support our technicians offshore, when they go offshore to do repairs, they need to be able to take the correct tools and equipment with them as far as they can. So our parts and procurement team are very central to making sure that we have everything that we need available for our technicians. Once they have done the work scope offshore, usually there will be some further repairs that are required. So they will need to come back, they'll need to give a list of those parts and tooling requirements to the procurement team in order that they can get the best price, get the quotes done, so that we can again go back to the customer and say what we would recommend to go back and fix. There's multiple administration roles throughout the business as well. So we have operations administrators, we have training administrators, we have QA administrators, and we have health and safety administrators. So again, another really important function throughout the business. And then there's the support services. So myself in HR, obviously Paul here with me in training, and we have a QHSE manager as well, and we try to replicate a lot of these roles throughout those different locations. So there are, albeit we're talking about the UK primarily here, there are opportunities throughout the business.
Okay, what you're seeing in front of you there is images of our training centre. So this is actually part of our training facilities here at our base in Great Yarmouth. One of the things that we do on a regular basis to ensure that our technicians are suitably trained is we monitor the work that they do. And the idea is if they're not doing a certain type of job and we can't prove that it's been done in a certain period of time, generally over 3 years, we get them back in on a particular asset, and again there's a selection of release systems there, and then retrain them on them to ensure that they're still competent. Then we can recertificate them, and then when we get audited by outside bodies, we can demonstrate the competency of our guys, not only by the fact that they may have done multiple jobs, but they've also been trained on items that they may not have familiarity with. So again, that's another core part of our business, ensuring that the guys and girls that we're sending are trained. And it says on the bottom there, we operate a training centre to develop, maintain competent multi-skilled lifeboat technicians. And in compliance, there's the relevant regulation in regards to the International Maritime Organization, which again, we're not going to go into too much there, but our training is now done to an international standard. So it says ISO 23678. So there is an international standard for the training that we deliver. So wherever it's either delivered here or another company delivers it supposedly anywhere else on the globe, it should be to the same standard. So we can guarantee that the people who are going out to undertake the actual repair, maintenance and inspection have all got the suitable training to be able to do that.
Okay, and finally, you know, just a little bit about the type of people that we like to recruit. You know, it's a very difficult role. Some of these roles are quite difficult, and we're essentially sending people to lifeboats and capsules to carry out sort of inspection and repair, because those capsules and lifeboats have to work, and they have to work first time. We would hope that they would never be needed, but if they are needed, the personnel on that rig or on that boat needs to have full confidence when they get in that capsule or lifeboat that it is going to work, that it is going to lower, and it is going to save their lives. And that is what we do, and that is why we're very passionate about the business that we're involved in, and we look for that passion in other people. We are a health and safety company. That is primarily what we're looking for, people to have a real understanding and awareness of health and safety and how important the work we do here is, and how everybody contributes towards that as well. So we're very proud of our safety record, and we'd want you to be very proud of any work that you did for us as well. You will be fully trained and assessed by experienced people against internationally and nationally recognised standards. Depending on the role, would depend on what standards they are. Paul, before we finish, is there anything else you want to add in?
Or in regards to just training?
Yeah,
I think again, I don't want to go off on a tangent, because I can probably do that in regards to the requirements for training, but the international standard that we work to ensure that our individuals or our technicians are up to scratch is a free sort of like tiered approach. So if you were new, you'd come and do initial training, which would take 4 days, which gives you an overview of the systems, an overview of the rules and regulations. Then we've got stage 1 or level 1, stage 1, which is, again, as prescribed in the international standard, is going to be up to 12 to 14 months of classroom stroke practical training. Then the stage 2 of that level is then undertaking all the information that you've been given and the instruction on those particular assets. You'll be observed doing it without any help, so it'll be a proper competency assessment. And then once that's complete and you get your level 1 certificate, we can work towards level 2, and again that'll generally take no more, well, generally between 18 plus months, because of the amount of work that you've got to do and the systems you've got to cover to demonstrate competency over the vast range of equipment. And again, we haven't really got time to go through the amount of equipment. You wouldn't believe the different makes of equipment that are on there. A lifeboat is just not a lifeboat. There's different types, there's different manufacturers. I think there's about 70 in China alone.
yeah.
They all make davits and winches. They all have their own little idiosyncrasies, and our technicians have to be competent on all of those various makes and types. So you can probably see, you know, I can think off the top of my head, davit makes, we're probably talking in excess of 72. with all different types of functions. So it's really important, and we really strive to ensure that the guys that we send out are fully competent in the areas that they're going to undertake their work scopes in. It's really the main focus of what we do in regards to the training.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very brief whistle-stop sort of overview of what we do here at Survival Systems. If we are advertising for positions, they'll all be available for you to have a look at on Indeed. We also have our own company website, so look up Survival Systems International, and we also put our adverts through onto LinkedIn. So that's all.
It.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant and so interesting. It's just one of those things that you don't think about, like the breadth of everything that needs to happen to make sure that people are safe, and all the different roles involved in that, and the differing skill sets, even just between somebody perhaps working as a sales representative to somebody in customer accounts. Again, like sort of similar but different skill sets in terms of what's needed. I was interested in what you were saying about your initially, like your maritime and offshore service technicians. Do you tend to sort of fish from a certain candidate pool for people like that? Do they come to you with experience in anything else, or do you tend to get people who are from college? What sort of things are you looking for?
Both is the answer. We always look for some skilled technicians, you know, because that makes life a little easier for us, but there's still certain training to do. But we have recently taken on 2 college aged or just finished college trainees, and they're going they're working with Paul and the workshop team to gain the skills to be able to work on our maritime offshore.
Oh, brilliant. Sorry.
No, carry on.
I was just going to ask what sort of courses those learners came from, those employees came from.
The 2 trainees came from a level 3 mechanical, the level 3 mechanical engineering courses.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
So that was them. The other guys that we've had people coming who've been doing life raft or lifeboat servicing for several years. Some of our maritime guys, I'm thinking of Dean in particular, came from a motor mechanic background, because the thing is, but bizarrely, obviously if you think about motor mechanics, you've got braking systems, you've got engine and cooling systems. Well, there's a diesel engine on the boat. It's going to be a while before they're all phased out for electric ones. You've got the actual winch equipment runs on a basic clutch and centrifugal brake assembly, much like you'd have in sort of cars or trucks. So someone who's done that can, I would say, relatively easily transfer with some transferable skills onto doing that. And once they've been given the input and training on the relevant types of equipment, they can soon apply what they know from the basics of how a clutch works and how a centrifugal brake works to the workings of the winch, because although it looks completely different, the inner workings are basically the same.
Oh, that is fascinating. So people coming from either sort of educational learning around engineering at level 3, or people who've been in other types of engineering environments, there are sometimes those transferable skills between the two that create entry points to you guys organisationally. And I guess obviously you've got certainly came across in everything that you were talking about the high quality and the importance of safety, and that attention to detail seems to me also almost like not a soft skill, but almost like an inherent quality that you're looking for, that people that are relentless about that.
I don't think we can stress this enough, and we do get moaned at a lot for it because they say, "Oh, stop going on about it." But the thing is, like Tina says, the life raft or the vessel that you're going to get, survival craft you're going to get into, we hope is never used. But it's got to work on the time the individual wants it. So when we go out there and do a service, we're basically saying that when you go in that and pull that lever, that's going to work and it's going to save your life, because the only reason you're in that is because you want to get off something in a hurry. So the main issue for us is, yes, you've got to have the technical ability. Yes, you've got to be able to undertake the task, but you've also got to have a sort of like appreciation of ensuring that the work area is left in a clean and functioning state, ensuring that everything is checked. We don't cut corners. The procedures are followed.
Yeah.
Everything has to be done as though even some of the actual jobs are relatively straightforward. The procedure must be followed, because if we miss anything, there's a potential there for the system to fail. And if it fails when it's needed, then there's the potential loss of life. And that's how important it is.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I just wondered as well, we'd sort of reflect on some of the entry points into kind of more technical parts of your organisation, but I wondered about if there are other entry points into some of the other areas, like the, you talked about the multiple administration roles, the sales and marketing, council finance, those sorts of things. If there are other sort of entry points, particularly for young people, into those types of roles, and if so, what sort of skills or experience are you looking for?
Sure. So I think certainly for some of the administration roles, we'd be looking for a business administration apprenticeship or qualification, level 3, something like that. For the customer account roles, we're definitely looking for someone who's done some sort of project management, logistics, something that involves multiple sort of juggling of customers, because the customer account coordinator would be looking at sending the guys offshore, which will involve travel arrangements, hotels, flights, that kind of thing, but also sorting out all of the equipment and sorting out the briefs and debriefs and planning the whole scope. So they need to have some planning skills, logistics skills, project management, that kind of thing. But as you say, for the administration roles, a business admin qualification or something along those lines, or an apprenticeship would be great.
Oh no, that's really interesting to understand sort of those different points, because obviously there's so much involved in your organisation, and interestingly so, sort of across the world. And I guess some of the roles, people do have to travel for, in terms of that. Yeah,
I mean, recently we've had a large crew out in Angola, haven't we? Mm-hmm. We're regularly sending people obviously to the North Sea. There's sites all over, the ports all over the UK. Where, in fact, one of the trainees got back from Middlesbrough last week. We sent him away with a crew to get some experience, and again we deal with sending people off to Singapore to assist. So it is there's the potential, especially for the technicians and for some of the support staff, to travel is there.
Could you talk us through, just very sort of briefly, sort of maybe like a kind of a day in the life, what a typical day, which I guess is probably quite varied, what a typical day might look like in the life of one of your sort of maritime and offshore service technicians, what their day might involve?
Okay, that's over to me. So
might they have an early start? And
so it will take as read that they've already attended a pre-brief where they've been given the information on the job, which will include a work packet and description of what they've got to do, information of where they've got to go. There'll be the travel plan, so how they're going to travel there, if they've got to take one of our pool cars or a van. The tool list will be discussed, it will be checked and put in the van, so that's all done. Okay. So if we were saying that they were going to start, they had to be on site at say 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were going down to Tilbury docks, they'd leave at the appropriate time, go down there, sign on to the docks, get the relevant authorization to go to whichever berth they were going to, meet the client representative, whoever that's going to be on there, discuss the job that was going to be done. Then, dependent again on what it was, if there was any permits to be done or any other sort of like simultaneous operations that were going on that had to be taken into consideration, that would be discussed at the time. And then after all that's done, they can actually assess the job, because we can look at what the work pack tells us, and it can tell us what the actual system is. But until you actually see it and see what state it's in, it might be well looked after, or it might look absolutely terrible, because there's a bit of a dichotomy between offshore, where generally there's records and there's a lot of information to support the actual inspection plan. But maritime, because we're dealing with vessels from all over the world, no matter if they're coming into the UK, it might be Panamanian flagged, it might be flagged in wherever, the crew might be predominantly Filipino, the first officers might be Greek, there's potential for sort of language barriers there as well. But the information is then looked at the guys assess the job, see if it's safe to do, undertake all the checks, perform the job. If there's anything that's amiss, they'll inform the client at the time and say, look, there's a problem with this. And then if they can't do any work on that because it's either too dangerous or they haven't got the parts, well, they'll call service. Information will then be passed on what to do. If it's just a straightforward one, they'll complete the job, replace any parts that they've got that they knew they had to replace if it was on the service schedule. And then once it's all done, they'll sign to say they've done it, and it's all done on an iPad. So they'll sign to say they've done it. The client will say, yes, I'm happy with that. It will come back to service. The lead service manager will check it to make sure it's relevant to the work scope, and then it will be sent with the certificate to allow the people to sail, because of the regulations. Wow. They can't sail until they've got an appropriate certificate to say that their survival equipment has been checked, and then that'll then be pinged off to the client, and then our guys come back, sit through the debrief. What went well? Was there anything that didn't go well that we can learn from? Check the equipment back in, and then knowing us, we give them their next job.
On to the next.
Oh, that is fascinating. That's really helpful to sort of understand what, you know, what a day in the life of sort of looks like. It just struck me from what you're saying, not only are those sort of good technical skills and attention to detail, but also you clearly need good people skills and some problem solving abilities as well.
That's your favourite.
We do ambassador training with all of our technicians to understand what you know, being a brand ambassador for our company is as well, because they do have to have difficult conversations sometimes with customers, and they certainly have to be able to discuss and explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, and so on. So yeah, it's a big job.
Yeah, absolutely. But it sounds fascinating in terms of like the opportunities that you'd have. I guess really sort of as a note to end on, we have sort of asked everybody this, they probably to each of you as individuals really, is just finally, if you were to go back and have a conversation with your younger selves starting out on your careers, have you got a piece of careers advice that you might give yourself now with the benefit of hindsight?
I think I would say to myself, be brave, take some risks in your career, make the leap, because sometimes you have to move around in order to find what you're good at, but also do something that you love, do something that you're passionate about, because you're going to be working for a long time. You have to have some love for that. So find what you're good at and try and find a job in that area, because it's really important to enjoy what you do.
Oh, that's great advice. I think that sounds absolutely brilliant. We should have left it till last, Paul.
Yeah, mine's going to be really weak now. I mean, the only thing I would tell because when you're sort of like when I was serving my apprenticeship and you were doing sort of like the mundane task, it was like, I don't see the point of this. But I think if I could tell myself, it's like, don't worry, it will get better. Get through it. You will actually learn from doing repeat tasks, and there'll come a time when you can tell someone else to do it.
That's another.
But no,
piece
I mean, it's you know, sometimes you don't see the relevance of doing.
No, keep learning.
Keep
learning.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that is absolutely great. Thank you both so much for your time today. It's been lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.